Coming in Facebook, coming in YouTube. Getting ready to start my show called Jimmy Rants over on Instagram Live. It is Friday, so on Fridays, we open the floor to you guys to answer your questions that you have. So as you come in, join us. Get your questions ready because we're going to come to you guys pretty darn quick. I usually at the beginning have a list of short little articles, and I have that today that I will be getting to. But then I'm coming to you guys for your questions. So this is the day for you shine. Give me lots of questions. Hello, Johanna. Thank you for always being one of my first ones here on YouTube. Hello, Norma and Hank and Tracy. Norma says, yay, it's Friday. Yes, it is Friday. I know it's a little bit hard to know what day it is anymore in the coronavirus era, right? We never know what day it is anymore. All right, YouTube, I'm going to put you a little further back here, a little closer. Objects are closer than they may appear. There we go. That way I can have the Instagram feed a little more centered. This feed was so close that this one wasn't quite centering the way I want it to. I've got tripods at the bottom of all those. And so when you try to put tripod against tripod, sometimes the legs like to fight each other. And that's what was happening. Hello, Nancy. Hello, Brian. Hello, Bonnie. Come on in, you guys. We're going to start my show called Jimmy Rants over on Instagram here in about 1 minute. And it is Ask Me Anything. So you guys go ahead and get your questions ready. What's funny is YouTube has been the one giving me the most questions lately. So thank you for that, YouTube. Keep that up. But I'd love to get a bunch of questions here on Facebook. I'm still having a little bit of trouble with, I think I'm shadow banned over on Instagram because my numbers on the lives tend to be a little more down than they have been. And so I'm thinking that they are not necessarily sending out the notifications when I go live because I'm getting a lot of people saying as much that, oh, I used to get notifications when you went live and now I don't anymore. Of course, that's why I do Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. So it's standardized. I'm always here unless I tell you otherwise. I'm always going to be right here, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. So not sure what's going on. So anyway, all that to say, give me some questions because I believe last week I only had like 2 or 3 questions when I went to them. And I'm like, okay, I hope you guys have questions because it'll be quite a boring Ask Me Anything if I don't have anybody asking me anything for that matter. So, all right, so let's get this show on the road. We're going to pop over here, share all over your pages here on Facebook. On your personal page and any group that you're a part of, you can share this right now with them. And thank you guys for being here. So let's get this show on the road, and here we go. It's Ask Me Anything time here on Jimmy Rant. So ask me anything. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. You can follow me there at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live, just like all these beautiful people are coming in right now. Thank you guys for being here. We're here 11 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. So be there, be square. Even if you don't get notifications, I will always be here, unless I tell you otherwise, at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page, so thank you guys for being here today. And then finally over on my YouTube stream. Got a lot of people finding the YouTube stream, so thank you guys for being here today for this episode of Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay right here on Instagram. It's up on IGTV. Shortly after it's over, it goes up there. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Finally, the official website for this show, JimmyRants.com, is where you can see all the past episodes as well. And we also have a way for you to support me. So if you like what I do here and you're like, okay, he seems cool, I want to support him financially, we have a Patreon link that you can click on, and a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. I picked up a whole lot of brand new Patreon supporters just this past week. So if you want to get in on that action, I would certainly appreciate it. I am incentivizing you I'm giving over the weekend, I'm going to put up both of my podcast episodes for next week in video form. I'll put them on the Patreon site so you can access those very early. And I am working on doing a bonus episode of Jimmy Rants just for my Patreons each week as well. We'll likely record that within the next couple of days and get that up for you. I got all kinds of surprises for the people that support me on the Patreon. So again, go to jimmyrants.com, click on the Patreon link, and a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. All right, guys, it is Friday, and you guys know what I do on Fridays. It's my favorite day of the week to do Jimmy Rants because I literally have no idea what questions are going to be asked. And anybody that knows me personally knows that that's my jam. I don't want to know when I go on interviews on other people's podcasts. I don't want to know what they're going to ask me. In fact, I just had someone set one up yesterday, and they're like, okay, thanks for all the information. Here's the date. Here's the time. Great. All right, I'll send you a full list of questions I'm going to ask you. And I'm like, no. Don't send me anything, because I've been at this so long that if I can't answer a question intelligently by this point in my career, I have no business being in front of a camera behind a microphone. And that's just my view. Now, obviously, if it's something that requires a little bit of research, a specific question with, wanting statistics or whatever, fine. But at the end of the day, the information is the information. And if I need to find statistics later, that's a whole nother story. But ask me anything. I literally thrive in the not knowing what you're going to ask. And literally about keto, cholesterol, fasting, podcasting, book writing, anything runs the gamut. And you can also ask me some personal questions, which I got a few questions ahead of time. And one of them was quite personal, as you will find out in just a moment. But as is my tradition, I have lots of little small stories to share. I ended up printing out more than I needed, just in case you guys don't ask a lot of questions. Get your questions ready, by the way. Go ahead and ask them down there, and when the time comes, I will come read your questions and answer. But all of these that I have here are all about COVID, with various little effects on our culture from COVID. So this first one is from Bloomberg. Coronavirus infections far exceed the reported cases, according to the CDC. So we had lots of news stories yesterday talking about it being 4 million cases now of the coronavirus. But now the CDC says, they said this on Tuesday, a lot more people are infected with it than we even know and report. They conducted a survey. They looked at antibodies to the virus in 10 different regions. It found prevalence was highly variable from one region to the next, but far higher than the reported cases. The presence of antibodies is evidence that a person has already had the coronavirus and then created an immunity to it. And if you'll recall from a Jimmy Rants episode I did earlier this week, T cell production in the immune system as well is fighting off the coronavirus, even without the production of antibodies. So all they're talking about in this analysis of the cases being far higher than the reported cases, it's not even counting people who have had a T cell response that knocked it out as well. So it's just a reminder that when you see death rates and you see statistics about coronavirus, you really can't trust anything right now because of the inaccuracy. And then there's purposeful misinformation. I saw another story about a Florida COVID-19 testing clinic showing a almost 100% positive rate. And then when they went and checked it out and looked at the actual things that they tested, it was actually 9.8% positive rate. So there's some screwy things going on with the numbers. And this is yet another one where the CDC is even admitting, oh yeah, the infections that we've reported far exceed what's being reported. But the bad thing is too, the media is still hyping, oh my gosh, we've had 4 million people exposed. Okay, great. The goal is to get to a level of people who've been infected so this thing goes away. Like, we're not trying to prevent people from getting it. All right, the next one, speaking of statistics, This is from jsonline.com. I think it's a Wisconsin newspaper. County health departments are behind in processing negative tests, which are affecting the COVID data. And so negative coronavirus tests are being delayed by as much as 2 to 3 weeks because the county health departments are behind in processing and reporting those negative tests. Meanwhile, positive test results are being processed and they immediately release the positive results. So when you hear a positive, you got to know there's probably a whole bunch of negative that go along with that positive, but they're not reporting it in real time. This is the problem with reporting the cases in real time, is you don't get a clear picture. And somewhere in this story, they said, we really should not be looking at day-to-day test results. We need to kind of look at it over a 7-day period. And that's true. If you're going to look at this data, don't look at it in the short term, the minutia, in the day-to-day. You've got to look at it through the prism of kind of a big picture view. If cases are going up and then death rates going down, we need to see that as well, and that is happening. Have you noticed in your local area, maybe you've tried to go back out to a restaurant and they've implemented social distancing and all that, and there's limited numbers of people. Well, according to Yelp, which is usually where people go to complain about a restaurant, they said that COVID-19 has now reportedly shut down 60% of all the restaurants. In other words, they've been given permission to reopen, but they simply can't because financially the last few months they've taken a hit, and many of them are now closed for good. I know around here from the corner from me here in Spartanburg, the IHOP that's local to us shut down because the coronavirus, the lack of customers just killed them. Many of them are still temporarily closed. The report also reveals a very clear correlation between increased interest in Yelp businesses like restaurants, bars, and gyms. And the restrictions have made it harder on these businesses. So that was tough when I read that. All right, what else do we have here? All right, so we got some interesting kind of COVID-related news here. Melatonin. You guys know that as the element that helps. It's usually produced by the sun hitting the skin, giving you lots of sunlight during the day, getting your circadian rhythm on. And then melatonin, when the sun starts to go down, starts to ramp up in the body. And that's the element in your body that helps you sleep. Well, guess what? It has a COVID-19 connection. Melatonin inhibits COVID-19 induced cytokine storm. So that's when it enters the body. The cytokine storm is what sets off all those inflammation things that happen in the body when you first get it. And so if you have higher levels of melatonin, this new analysis says, then your immune cells are able to deal with it. But the way it induces cytokine storm, it reverses aerobic glycolysis in the immune cells. And I mean, it's pretty fancy schmancy. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, but the point is higher levels of melatonin are another way to fight this thing, because they give you both anti-inflammatory and antioxidant actions. It protects the lungs from damage in many of the experimental models involving inflammation and oxidative stress. Melatonin also has antiviral actions, specifically all coronaviruses and any virus for that matter. And so if you're not putting an emphasis on improving your melatonin levels in your body, this is another thing on top of vitamin D, on top of vitamin C and zinc and all the other things you've heard about. Think about melatonin. Now, not necessarily from an exogenous source, but making sure you get out in the sun to get that into your body. It's an inexpensive, non-toxic way. It has a long shelf life. They're talking about exogenous sources. I think you can produce enough with your skin. Make sure your cholesterol levels are high enough, because if you don't have high enough cholesterol, your body can't make the vitamin D, and it probably impacts the level of melatonin as well. So interesting, right? Yet another little piece to the puzzle of boosting that immunity so even when COVID hits your body can fight it off. But something that won't fight it off are these PFAS chemical pollution. This is out of Salon.com. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control acknowledged that we have no idea how these potent family of chemicals called PFAs, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are impacting your risk for COVID-19. We know that they made that announcement. And how many knew about that the Centers for Disease Control talked about these? So what are these things? They are unique chemical properties that help to repel oil and water, and they're everywhere. Think about if you have any of these things in your house. Teflon frying pan, stain-resistant carpeting, outdoor gear, firefighting foam, just to name a few. And all of these are what's called immunotoxicants, meaning they impair the immune system in humans and animals, which I've always wondered, okay, if we know about these things and these common things that go into the house, if we already know about that, why do they allow it? Like if we know that they have an immune suppressing ability, why don't they come up with something else? I get it, it's convenient, it helps protect the product and all that stuff, but come on. Research tells us, listen to this, PFAs reduce the efficacy of a vaccine. So if you're one of those people waiting on the vaccine, it's not going to be as strong or as effective because of these PFAs. And the antibody response does not respond very well. So if you get COVID-19, the antibodies are suppressed because of this chemical. Ostensibly, it's fighting off the chemical, and while it's fighting off the chemical, in comes COVID-19, and it can't really deal with it. So, pretty interesting, huh? I thought it was. And then finally, was there maybe a low virulent strain pandemic inducing immunity against COVID-19 months before it came out? So this was from arxiv.org. Countries highly exposed to incoming traffic from China were expected to be the highest risk of COVID spread. However, the case numbers are negatively correlated with incoming traffic. Infection levels are positively correlated with population size, blah, 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 blah. And so what they're saying is these could be explained if a low virulent strain began spreading a few months earlier. So everybody's talking about SARS-CoV-2 being a high virulent strain, but what if there was a part one of that strain that was at a much lower level than SARS-CoV-2, which is the official name for COVID-19? What if it was already out there and people developed antibodies long before COVID-19 came, so that when COVID-19 hit them, they were already protected. They were already able to have antibodies in place to fight this thing off. And this is pretty fascinating. And we find the dynamics of the COVID-19 pandemic depend on this spread and delaying that initial onset. So the people that are getting hardly any symptoms, the so-called asymptomatic people that get it, could it be that maybe they were exposed to this low virulence strain? And it was a pandemic. They were calling it a pandemic, that this low-level version of COVID-19 was out there long before COVID-19 was officially released and the SARS-CoV-2 was identified. Maybe we already had immunity to it, a lot of us. Pretty fascinating. And it could explain some of the anomalies of why some people get this and get hit hard, and others, it's hardly anything at all. Pretty interesting, right? All right, so that's all the headlines. Let me go to the questions that came in ahead of time. And this was the first one. What kind of hot tub do you recommend? I'm taking a poll, and I know you have one. Yes, I do have one. I had always dreamt of, for many years, of getting a hot tub. I finally got one a couple years ago. And I actually went with the official brand of hot tub called Jacuzzi. And it was only because I liked a lot of the features on the Jacuzzi that I had my eye on for a little while. And there were some other ones. There were some cheaper ones, a lot cheaper ones from Sam's Club and Costco. I all the time see them advertising. But I chose the one that I did, not because it was the cheapest, but because Jacuzzi was a very solid name brand that I knew if something went wrong with it, that I could call them and have them fix it and all that jazz. So to date, so far so good. It has been wonderful, and I haven't had any problems with it. I do get in there every single day. I will tell you, since it's been hotter, it's not very fun to be out in a hot tub when it's 100 degrees outside. So I don't go out in the middle of the day. But early in the morning, I'm a very early riser, sometimes as early as 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll get out there, and it's kind of my peaceful meditation. And around like 4:30, 5 o'clock, I can actually start to hear the birds chirping and everything. It's really peaceful out there. But I personally use the Jacuzzi. I have no experience with other brands, so I have no idea how they are. I just know this one, it does the trick. The jets are wonderful. I love it. So I don't know if that helped you or not, but thank you for that question. The next one was very personal and very funny. Are you single? I don't know how to answer that question. So technically, I am not single. Technically, I'm still married. In South Carolina, they have a law that requires you to be separated for 1 year before you're allowed to file for a divorce. So I am currently in month number 11 of that separation period that's required, 11 of 12. So once that separation period is over, I can file. And then once the filing goes in, COVID's messed it up a little bit, but it will be finalized. So I guess assuming when the divorce is finalized, I will be officially single. And I'm in no hurry to have any relationship or anything like that, but I have mixed feelings about the singleness thing. I both enjoy the freedom of it and have enjoyed the autonomy of it, but I do miss companionship. I'm a very social person, and so I do miss having that companionship that comes with not being single. But thank you for that question. And then one more question, you guys. Now come to yours. How do you lower cortisol? Now that's a loaded question because you have to figure out, why is cortisol elevated? So most of the time when cortisol is elevated, then it's a stress response. But let me go one step further. A lot of people assume that they have high cortisol. Would it surprise you that the vast majority of people do not have high cortisol? I've actually had this run as early as like 1 year ago. It was right in July last year. I had a saliva cortisol test run where you take it at 4 different times of the day. I think it's 8, 12, 4, 8. And what it looks for is this curve. So in the morning, it tends to be a little bit higher. By midday, it tends to be much lower, and because you don't need a lot of cortisol in the middle of the day. And then it starts to go down, and then by mid-afternoon, it's still not all the way down, but it's up enough. And then by the end of the night, when you're about to go to sleep, it's at its lowest, so you can sleep. That's the normal curve. Mine was down all day long, and I was feeling the fatigue of that. I was feeling the brain. I was feeling all the symptoms of having low cortisol, adrenal fatigue. And so people assume they have high cortisol that they need to lower. So I would, before you do anything to try to lower cortisol, make sure you have high cortisol. If you have not done that saliva test, it's called a 4-point saliva cortisol test. Pretty standard. You can get those pretty much everywhere online. You can ask a functional medicine doctor about it. You can have that run. So determine whether you have high cortisol, and if you do, then you can try to deal with stress, which is the primary reason it would be higher. But I would say you might have low cortisol, and again, getting that test would confirm it. But thank you for that question. Lots of good questions came in ahead of time, but I'm ready for you guys. We're going to come to Instagram first, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on this Ask Me Anything. JimmyRants.com is the website. Let me bring you guys a little closer since I'm talking to you. All right, Mom Needs Coffee. I love that moniker. Thank you for your first question. What do you recommend to support kidney health? Any specific foods or supplements? Well, I am not a nephrologist, but I know several ones. Dr. Jason Fung, who is my co-author on The Complete Guide to Fasting, is the foremost authority on that kind of subject regarding kidney health. So I definitely would point you to go look at Dr. Jason Fung's work. I think here on Instagram, he's at Dr. Jason Fung. But in general, anything that's going to reduce your blood sugar and insulin load would be good for your kidneys. Like I think we sometimes try to say, okay, I have this X thing in my body, and thus I need to target that X thing. And I'm more of a mechanistic, let's back up and see what's leading to that X thing in your body being a problem. And when you look at it mechanistically, pretty much your whole body is determined by your metabolism. And your metabolism being right is going to make sure the rest of your body is right. So, not sure what specifically is perhaps wrong with your kidneys, but just know that reducing your carbohydrate is going to be a good idea. And getting proteins that will be the complete proteins, which is animal sources, is also another good idea. Eating natural fats from real food sources, all of those things are going to make sure your kidneys are in tip-top shape. Now, a lot of times the complaints about the Atkins diet, for example, when I first started blogging, they were talking, oh, it's bad for your kidneys. And there's literally no study that shows eating meat is what they would point at. Is somehow harming your kidneys. So it sounds like you're doing, if you're eating keto, you're doing the right things. Just keep it up. If there's a specific issue, though, definitely look up the work of the nephrologists, people like Dr. Jason Fung. There's another one named Dr. Keith Runyon, Runyan, who can also help you. But thank you for your question. All right, Debs Rogers says there's no money in telling people to sit in the sun and get more sleep. They just want to vaccinate everyone and make their billions. Well, that is unfortunately the thing a lot of people are doing, unfortunately. Holly says a whole year to get a divorce. It's 3 months in Kansas. Yeah, when I told people that I had to wait 1 year of separation before I could even file for divorce, they were like, oh my gosh, like a lot of my friends in like California, they're like, you need to come to California because you could be bada bing, bada boom done in 6 weeks. And the funny part is they don't allow you to date while you're separated until the divorce is final. And so I can't even go into a building alone with with a woman. I can't even do that, or they'll just assume that you did something you're not supposed to do. So it's all the more crazy. I assume it's because I'm in the Bible Belt that a lot of the southern states have that kind of rule. But Kansas, 3 months, huh? It would be done by now if I lived in Kansas. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let me pop over here to YouTube or Facebook and then YouTube. How many hours of fasting is considered an extended fast, says Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. I define an extended fast of anything longer than 24 hours. Now, I know Dr. Fung and his group, they like to refer to intermittent fasting as 42 hours or less. So by his definition, anything over 42 hours would be an extended fast. I think if you make it to 42 hours, that's a pretty extended fast and not so intermittent. But I think if you go over 24 hours, you're extended fasting, which means you should be able to go many more hours over 24 in an extended fast. I suppose when people hear extended fasting, they think about 5 days, they think about 7 days. I've done several 21 days. You don't have to go that long. But yeah, I guess definition-wise, anything over 42 hours, according to Dr. Fung, because less than that would be an intermittent fast. I think if you go over 24 hours, that's an extended fast. Tracy says, I've had gastric bypass. I feel better eating in a 4-hour window. So that's 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating. I do not get enough fat and calories. Do you have any suggestions? Yeah, you need to extend your window. Because if all you're getting in your 4 hours, all the food you can get in within 4 hours is still not enough. You need to stretch out that eating window. So I'm going to make a suggestion to you. Try making it a 6 hour window. You're still fasting for 18 hours, 18 hours, which is a lot. Like you could even go 16 hours and then eat in an 8 hour window, but let's try to tighten it up or expand it just slightly to 6 hours. And I'm assuming when you eat in that 4 hour window, you're having a meal somewhat at the beginning of that 4 hour window and then another meal somewhat at the end of that window. You need to stretch it out. And someone having gastric bypass, attempting fasting, I mean, more power to you. Most struggle, just like you are, of getting enough food into their body. So I hope that helps. Let me know how it works. And in worst case scenario, try to get it in that 8 hours because I think it would be doable. You're just going to have to work at it and figure out what that optimal is. But don't feel shameful if all you can do is 16 hours of fasting and then an 8 hour winding. 16 hours. Most Americans are not even fasting for 16 hours. So don't beat yourself up about that one. All right, you guys, let me pop over here now to my YouTube channel. I'm going to show you guys. See, there's the YouTube feed. Hi, guys. YouTube feed. All right, so YouTube, we're going to see what you guys have to say here. Lots of questions today. Do you think that 23-hour daily fasting is long enough for good health? I don't think you have to do 23 hours daily. If you do, that's basically OMAD. If you do OMAD like 2 to 3 times a week, like every other day, that's the max I would do. I wouldn't necessarily go OMAD every single day. Yeah. Do you think we'll ever get back to normal? Normal has been redefined. Normal is in the history books now. I think we are living in a day and age. I saw a meme the other day that said, they've decided to call next year 0001 and everything before 0001 will be referred to as BC, before COVID. So I think COVID has radically changed our world forever. Will ever be back to some semblance of what you're referring to as normal. All right. Let's see what else you got. Have you ever heard about holy basil? It works wonderfully. Yeah, if you listen to my show, Real Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole on Thursdays, we did a whole podcast looking at what's called adaptogens, and holy basil is one of those adaptogens. So yes, very well aware. Thank you. Gaz Keto, good morning. Since you brought up sleep, I notice I don't sleep more than 4 or 5 hours. I've been on keto almost 20 years. Is this normal? I feel great though. What a great question. So when you eat keto, here's something that a lot of keto people freak out about. They'll report to me, oh, Jimmy, my sleep sucks. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, I'm not sleeping as long ever since I've gone keto. I'm like, okay, but how do you feel when you wake up? Oh, I feel great. Everything's wonderful. I have great energy. I'm not hungry. Everything's what I said. So by sucks, you mean less than you used to have when you ate carbs. Well, yeah, isn't that bad? And I said, well, no, not necessarily. Because think about what the sleep does. The sleep helps you recover from your previous day, right? And part of the recovery is also a metabolic recovery. And so if internally you're not feeding your body junk anymore, and you're not creating as much damage that needs to be healed while you're sleeping, guess what? You ain't got to sleep as long. You don't. And so if you don't sleep as long, it doesn't mean your sleep was worse. It could be your sleep was more efficient. Now, I wear this Oura Ring, not a sponsor or anything, but I love the data that it gives you. And I look at deep sleep and REM sleep. And many times I will go to bed at say 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then I'll wake up at say 2 a.m., 2:30, and that's not long sleep. But then I look at the deep and the REM, and combined it's well over 3.5 hours worth of really quality sleep. And so don't look so much at I'm only in bed for 5 or 6 hours. Instead, get you one of these tracking devices and look at what the actual kind of sleep it is, because it's probably a lot better sleep than you're giving it credit for, simply because you're only looking at the total. It's kind of like those people who look at their total cholesterol only. Oh my God, I'm doing so bad. It's a 247. All right, well, what's your triglycerides? Oh, they're under 50. Well, what's your HDL cholesterol? Oh, it's over 70. Okay, and you're worried about the total. Why? You shouldn't be. Thank you for that question. I love that before COVID BC, yes. Thank you, YouTube. Let me pop back over here to my Instagrammers. Hope you guys have more questions. We got a lot of time left on today's show. Thank you for being here. Wow, no new questions, huh, guys? All right. I'm going to riff a little bit then. I've got some more headlines. Please, please, please go ahead and add your questions here, because I do want to answer your questions. So feel free, write anything, ask me anything. That's what the show is called. And I love to answer questions. So I challenge you, if you're watching this, write me a question you don't think I've ever seen before. And let's see how well you do. I've seen them all. I promise you. All right, let me get to a couple more of these things. Rutgers. You've heard of the Rutgers University. They and their English department have decided to de-emphasize traditional grammar. You heard me right. The English department at Rutgers University recently announced that they are going to try to be more anti-racist in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. And they have sent out directives and initiatives for the upcoming semesters, and they're de-emphasizing traditional grammar. The initiatives were spelled out by the English department chair at Rutgers, Rebecca Walkowitz, and it was sent to faculty, staff, and students in an email, and it's titled Department Actions in Solidarity with Black Lives Matter. The email states that the ongoing and future initiatives that the English department has planned are a way to contribute to the eradication of systemic inequities facing Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And one of those initiatives is described as incorporating critical grammar into the language. In other words, if you mess up grammar, it's okay. We knew what you meant. Now, I was an English major, double major poli-sci in English in undergrad. This is appalling to me. What? Like, we're not going to let people, and I'm a writer today, we're not going to have people speak clearly in language that's understandable by having the proper grammar? Like, are we going to also let spelling go by the wayside? Are we going to allow jargon to come into the equation? This is pretty crazy. Like, I get it. You're wanting to stand for standing up as anti-racist and being a part of the Black Lives Matter movement and blah, blah, blah. But is this the answer? And how insulting is it to contribute to the eradication of systemic inequities facing Black, Indigenous, and people of color? To me, it's quite racist of them to say, okay, well, if you're Black, Indigenous, or a person of color, you don't know how to speak right, write right, spell right. When I saw this headline, I went, what? Like, incredible. But Rutgers, they feel like they have to do that. So there's a new study out, you guys. Probiotics don't do much for your gut health. Have you heard about this one? So a new report from the American Gastroenterological Association says all the so-called good bacteria from probiotics don't really do that much for your gut health. And so they're saying, stop taking probiotics. Now, what they're not telling you about this American Gastroenterological Association is they are bought and paid for by pharmaceutical companies. This is something to remember Whenever you hear a medical group come out against something that seems prudent, like getting probiotics into your body, when they come out so strongly against something that could be very beneficial to your health, look at the ties, look at who pays for them, look at all the everything about them. Because most of the time, they're protecting some financial interest that supports their work. Okay? Uh, we do still highlight a few cases to use for probiotics, but public's assumptions about the benefits of probiotics are not well founded, said the lead investigator in a new statement. She chaired this panel, and so they go into probiotics. See, I think they realize people are on to the idea that your gut microbiome is everything. And if you can take care of your gut microbiome, then there's no need to take all those prescription medications anymore, because gut health impacts your total health. And I think people often ask me, what's the next trend? I think we need to be paying attention to our gut health, and that people, I mean, and people have been for many years, but now more than ever before, we're seeing the relevance of it, right? All right, and then one more, and I'll come back to you guys. A new study has found that cinnamon is linked to blood sugar control and prediabetes. Now, we know that blood sugar can be lowered by using cinnamon in your diet. We've known that for a little while, but this is yet another study that shows that. A 12-week study showed beneficial effects of adding cinnamon to the diet, keeping blood sugar levels stable in those who had prediabetes. They specifically looked at people with prediabetes because sometimes blood sugar lowering effects, they only look at people with full-blown type 2 diabetes. These are people who have slight elevations in their blood sugar and are headed for diabetes. So they were trying to show that we can use cinnamon to help reduce the risk of having type 2 diabetes. But cinnamon has been very well known in many studies prior to this to be something very beneficial for lowering blood sugar. All right, let me come back to you guys now. Keep your questions rolling. Let's see how you guys did. All right, here we go. Deb says, do you think OMAD is effective for weight loss? So if you are, OMAD being 1 meal a day fasting, if you are fasting with the purpose of it being weight loss, I think you're a little misguided. Personally, I think that. Because people think, well, let me OMAD, but see, here's what happens. They eat that 1 meal, but then they're like, well, I'm trying to lose weight, so let me under-eat calories. So, okay, I think I can tough it out if I, in that 1 meal, have, 800 calories. Oh, that's too extreme. Extreme. Let's do 1,000. Okay, I'll do 1,000 calories in that 1 meal. Okay, great. And I wake up the next day and I'm starving, and I'm like, But then you get 1 meal the next day. Okay, today, I'll be better today. Okay, I don't want 1,000. That was way too many. So let me go down to, 700 calories. So you see the slippery slope. When you put the focus of fasting on weight loss, it challenges you and tempts you with wanting to lower calories more and more and more. And psychologically, it makes sense. Oh, well, if fasting and eating 1 meal is good, then fasting and eating 1 meal with a whole lot less calories must be better. So if you're going to do the 1 meal a day thing, make sure you're getting adequate calories in that 1 meal. Don't overeat them, but don't undereat them either. And if you're only eating 1 meal, the great challenge I hear from a lot of people doing OMAD is, I can't get enough calories in a day. And if that's you, you either spread out the meals so that you have 2 separate meals within a tight window and intermittent fast, or you try to get enough in that 1 meal. So only you can answer that question. But as far as weight loss goes, weight loss is going to be impacted by so much more than fasting and eating. How's your stress? How's your sleep? Are you taking any medications? There are just so many factors involved in weight loss that to put it all on OMAD's success or failure has to be determined by whether you lose weight on it or not is a little bit silly. I get it. People want to say, well, I was on keto diet. The keto diet helped me lose 70 pounds. Okay, it probably contributed to your body being in a better metabolic state to be able to lose weight. But was it the only thing that enabled that to happen? No. You also had other things going on as well. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Holly wants to know what's on my menu for the weekend. On the weekends, I don't really change anything about what I eat during the week. And quite frankly, right now, because the economics of everything happening in the world right now, I don't have a lot of money to spend on food. And so I thankfully have some backyard chickens that are pooping me breakfast every day. So I generally will wake up in the mornings, and in the morning I will eat somewhere around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll eat 8 eggs cooked in Kerrygold butter with some cheese. And that will be my first meal of the day. I generally can go many hours between meals before I eat the second meal. Sometimes the second meal is another round of eggs. Occasionally I'll go to the grocery store and get a rotisserie chicken that I can eat on for a couple of days, 2-3 days. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a heavy diet right now of complexity. I would get more red meat, but that's expensive. It's gone up in price with COVID and everything and the shortages that happened. I'm going to start to try to find some. I did have one farm reach out to me here on Instagram, and they sent me some pork chops and some ground beef and pork sausage, a couple of steaks. So they sent me some food, so I'll be eating on that. I'll probably grill one of those steaks this weekend, but yeah, that's what I'm eating. Cindy says, at some point, if we stop losing weight and inches for a long period of time, should we lower the fat that we eat each day, still have lots of belly fat to lose? Well, that's a great question, and a lot of people default to that. I don't necessarily want to jump, just like I was saying about the OMAD a while ago. I don't want you to jump to, if you're not losing weight or inches, that it has something to do with your diet necessarily. It could. I don't know what you're eating in your diet. And if you're eating very little protein, I would say bump up your protein. And when you bump up your protein, slightly reduce your fat as well. But no, sometimes it's not even anything you're doing in your diet. Sometimes it's added stress. And I'll be honest with you guys, in the midst of this COVID-19 and I'm going through a divorce and all the things that I've dealt with, I have put on about 15 pounds since the beginning of the year. And I haven't really changed anything. And I just told you, I'm only eating basically eggs for my nutrition every day. So is that me eating too much fat? Is that me eating too many calories? Probably not. It has everything to do with the stress. And so when you're stressed, you try to deal the best you can with it. And I feel like I'm dealing with it myself pretty well. But right now is unprecedented times. You kind of have to give yourself a little bit of grace rather than thinking, okay, panic mode, I need to change something in my diet, and it probably has nothing to do with your diet at all. But I'm right there with you, Cindy. I promise you, I am still working on my own belly fat because I have it, and it's discouraging some days. Just be encouraged. You are not alone. There's a lot of us dealing with this, and 2020 has been, it sucked, let's just put it that way, of trying to deal with that. I've gotten a little more intense hatred lately from people that say, oh, see, Jimmy Moore can't even like keep his weight under control and he eats perfect keto. Okay, what that means is keto's giving me great health markers because I do check those and they're all brilliant still, but I still have the weight. So what's going on with the weight probably has nothing at all to do with that diet. This is something you can say to people when they say, well, keto's not working. I'm like, my triglycerides are under 100. My HDL's over 50. My inflammatory markers like HSCRP are below 1. My A1C is 4.8. Like, where again am I not healthy? So you can say your diet is what's keeping you healthy, but other factors in your lifestyle is what's keeping you from losing weight. So I hope that helps you out. Definitely keep at it. Don't give up. quarantine 15. Yeah, Tiger, I really didn't want to do that. Gain the weight, that is. And like I said, I'm only eating eggs every day. How the heck do you gain weight when all you're doing is eating eggs if it's only a diet thing? And this is the lesson here. It's not always just a diet thing. And this is something we need to remind ourselves of and show ourselves grace in the midst of, is we're living through some unprecedented times, and it's going to have an impact. It is. All right, let's come back over here. Nancy says on the grammar, so books and written material will all look like a teenager's text and Facebook post. That's just sad. Yes, sometimes I see a teenager or another member of Gen Z out there on social media, and I see them use abbreviations, and I sometimes have to Google their abbreviations. I'm like, what? Like, what is that? Like, I get BRB and some of the other ones, but they'll use ones, they shorten everything now. So it's like you almost have to have like a little cheat sheet code of when they say CDC, AB4, I'm just like, ugh, need the cheat code. But you're right, yeah, it looks like we're headed that direction if we're not too careful. All right, let me pull YouTube back up front. Is there a guru in the low fat camp that you like? Says Daniel. Ooh, what a great question. I don't dislike anybody just because they have a differing view on me from nutrition. I think we can all learn from everybody, and that includes those people learning from people like me and others in the keto space. So I don't personally dislike anybody in the low fat realm. Who do I like the best in the low fat realm? I mean, it's so funny because people change their views so often. It's hard to know who's still low fat, who's still this, who's still that. I don't really want to categorize it. I think we are all in this business for the same goal, unless you're a shyster trying to make money off of people. But most of us that are in this for the right reasons, we're all in this to help people get healthier. So I don't really break us down into different factions of this person's low fat and do you like that person, and then low carb, and then high meat, and then low meat. I don't really want to look at it that way. I try to learn from everybody out there, and it's something that has served me well on my podcast. When I interview people that are vegans, for example, I usually try to glean information out of them that I think, okay, we should learn from that. So I'm going to refuse to answer your question only because I don't really see a difference. We're all in this with the same purpose. But thank you for that question. Let's see what else we have here. How to make a 10-year-old boy eat low carb. Well, don't make him eat low carb, Johanna. He's a few days a week at Daddy's who is all about the treats. Well, if you've got that going on, if the 10-year-old is with his daddy and the daddy's like, eat whatever you want, I don't care, and then the 10-year-old's with you and you're saying, eat not all that stuff daddy lets you eat, but what I have, unless it's like always bacon and burger, I guess that would be the end for you. When he's with you, feed him bacon and burgers. But then if he's also eating junk, we know the combination of carbohydrate and fat is a lethal combination. Now, a 10-year-old is not going to die, but it won't serve him well. Is if you have an amicable relationship with the dad, I would say try to talk it out and say, hey, I want our kid to be healthy. Can we work on this together? And if he refuses, then maybe you can't really do anything until your child is over the age of 18 and convince him. But I guess the best thing you can do is live by example and show him this is how you do it. And then if he chooses to do it, great. If he doesn't, then I guess you have your answer. Are you currently doing any resistance training, says Gaz. What a great question. So I will be honest with you, and I will tell you I have struggled with that. And let me tell you why. Because of the added stress of everything that's been going on top of COVID-19 and everything happening, and then in my own life, the divorce I'm going through, it's been incredibly stressful on my body. And I know that. When I attempted doing a 7-day fast recently, we did that publicly here on Jimmy Rants, it was difficult because my body knows I'm going through stuff and all the relaxation things in the world just can't touch this right now. I think the fact that I'm upright every day is pretty much a miracle because it's been pretty harrowing, all the stuff that I've had to try to deal with stress wise. And so when your body is stressed, it's probably not a good idea to be going really hard working your muscles. Now, that's not to say there's no benefits to that, and I definitely want to get back to that. But currently, no. I need life to calm down a little bit before I get back to a hot and heavy regimen. So, what I've been focusing in on is light exercise, lots of walking and thinking, but nothing real strenuous right now by design, just to kind of get through this period in my life. It won't last forever. When I'm on the other side of it, I guarantee you I will be hitting it a lot harder than I am now. But thank you for that question. Benjamin, what do you think of combining intuitive eating and intuitive fasting in the context of keto? Sometimes I eat 1 meal a day, some days 24-hour fast, some days 3 meals a day. I think that's wonderful. And I actually think it's preferential, Benjamin. Thank you for that, by the way. We always talk about with exercise, you should change it up because if you do the same exercise all the time, the muscles start to learn that that is the norm and they never improve and show benefit. But if you switch things up and change the kind of training, then the muscles get stimulated in different ways and they keep growing. Why would it not be the same with our nutrition? If you decide to eat 3 meals intuitively in one day and then decide the next day, I'm not really hungry, and you don't eat at all, and then the day after that you decide to eat a couple meals, and the day after that, you fast for most of the day and have one big meal at the end of the day. I mean, I think mixing it up is probably more wise than not. And yeah, I've heard many people say that they've done exactly what you're describing there and seen great success. Some of us are creatures of habit. I will tell you, I am one of those people who is a creature of habit. I tend to do similar things every day. Like I said, my breakfast meal with the eggs is generally around 7:38 in the morning. I generally eat my second meal of the day somewhere around 3:34, 4:30 in the afternoon. And that's just the way I like it. But I do like the idea of mixing it up from time to time. But thank you, YouTube. I'll push you to the back. Bring my guys here back from Instagram back to the front. See if you have any other questions before we get out of here. Tiger says, I have to Google all the abbreviations as well. And I'm almost 60. Yeah, I'm 48, so I'm not a young pup, but I do tend to have culturally, I try to keep up with stuff that's going on. So like I know who Post Malone is. I freak out teenagers when I talk to them because they're like, how you know who Post Malone is? I'm like, I know Lizzo, I know all of them. Like, what do you mean? How do I? Doja Cat, like I know all these people. They're like, man, you're old though. Yeah, thank you that I'm old. So, but I do love playing all kinds of music. I do. The modern pop music is pretty cool. When I was a kid, I was a big fan of the pop music of the 1980s. So I was a kid in the 80s. And so I would come home from church every Sunday and Casey Kasem's Top 40 would be on. By the time we'd be home, it would start at noon, but we'd get home about 12:30. I would turn it on and he was on like number 35. And I would sit there and listen for the next 3.5 hours to this man. He was one of my inspirations, by the way, for wanting to be a broadcaster. So I would listen to him, the way he told stories, and the way he sounded on the air. Of course, he had a wonderful voice for radio, and I always emulated that. I always wanted to be like that when I grew up. And yeah, I loved his heart. I love the warmth that he had coming through the airwaves. And it's something I try to do now when I do podcasts. I always try to think, okay, I mean, I don't try to pretend to be something I'm not, but I always try to use my voice as a method of feeling relatable to people. And I felt like Casey Kasem did exactly that every time he did that show. And so big fan of his. Um, Trying to think who else influenced me growing up. I just always listened to all kinds of people. And even if I didn't like, if it was like a political show and if I didn't agree with them, I would always listen for how they related to their audience. And even to this day, I'll still listen to like other people's podcasts. Like I've listened to a lot of Joe Rogan lately. Now Rogan can get a little potty mouth from time to time, and that's fine. That's his show, and he's very full of himself sometimes. Oh yeah, I know a buddy of a buddy that knows the buddy of the buddy that told me, and then he'll say whatever was said. Um, but I do like Joe Rogan's real conversational style, and I've tried to do that a lot. When I do interviews here on Jimmy Rant Studio, I'll do them on this phone here, and I've been doing those video interviews lately, and that's kind of been my style. Let's just jump right in. I mean, I used to have this whole spiel. Welcome back to the Living La Vida Low Carb Show with Jimmy Moore. Yeah, it was just too formal. I got rid of that style and started to be just, hey, what's going on? Come on in. Hey, like, how's your day today? You know, and having these conversations. And I think it's so much easier on the ears. Both of you sound like real people, and you don't have to pretend to be something you're not. And yet Tiger says, I'm not a fan of the shock jocks. Yeah, me neither. The whole Howard Stern shtick, I never got. I would listen to Howard Stern because I did admire his voice. He's got a great voice for radio. But man, like stylistically, I'm like, no. And some of the political people, like Sean Hannity, it's like, dude, you don't have to be that way. Like, let it go. But anyway, that gives you a little bit of insights into why I do my shows the way I do. But that's all the time we have for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content right here on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LivinLowCarbMan. Once you're there, engage live. We're here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So be there, be square. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page. Thank you guys for being here, as well as over on my YouTube channel. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed a live, you can watch it on replay right here on Instagram. It's on IGTV. So as soon as this is over, I will post it up. It'll be a little 10-second preview on my page. Click on that little box and it'll take you straight to the full episode that you can watch on replay. We also put all the past episodes up over on YouTube. Type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Finally, hop on over JimmyRants.com and you can see all the past episodes there. Please go ahead and click on the Patreon link as well if you like what I do here. Definitely would show me some support. I need to eat more than eggs sometimes, so your support would be greatly appreciated of any amount, and I'm going to give you lots of perks to do that very thing to join the Patreon. But guys, thank you so much for watching on this Ask Me Anything. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you again on Monday. See ya. All right. That is it, you guys. Let me go ahead and set this to the side. Let her rip. Let her rip. Get her done. On Fridays, I don't really do a whole lot of notes on that Ask Me Anything episode. It's like, why? It's Ask Me Anything. I'd rather not tell you what we talked about, so you'll go watch it. So, all right, guys, let me pop off of here for now. It is Friday afternoon, so I tend to slow down. Although I do have an interview in an hour with one of my old podcast friends. Sean Croxton is his name. You might know Sean Croxton. He used to do the Underground Wellness podcast. He and I were like two of the first ones out in the podcasting realm many years ago. And so it's going to be good to catch up with him. He's still out there podcasting with a show called Quote of the Day, if you want to go check him out. But he's just one of the coolest people. And like I said, he and I have been friends for many years. So I've got to interview him at 1 for an upcoming episode. I'm a little bit ahead on my episodes of my podcasts, like 3 weeks ahead now. So I got a bunch of people lined up to air, but the work never ends, and I love every minute of it. So I guess I should get back to it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, YouTube. We'll see you again.